Welcome to the Future 3 podcast. Boom. I'm Sean.
I'm Shaylin.
And I'm Cyan.
And we are the Future 3 podcast.
Everyone, buckle up, literally, because today we have a federal criminal defense attorney in New York City who founded his own law firm in 2004 and has spent over 20 years representing people charged with some of the most serious offenses in the federal court system, including racketeering, narcotics, conspiracies, and homicide. Please welcome to the Future 3 podcast, Mr. James Bell.
Yeah.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is very cool. Very excited for you guys.
Job is awesome. It's a lot of action-packed stuff that we're definitely going to get into for sure. But,
No, for sure.
I mean, look, when I'm watching TV shows, I see in the real courtroom drama, there's a lot of attorneys who have that dramatic moment that basically changes everything. So, I mean, in real life, is that kind of the same for you? Have you ever had that moment?
Not really like TV. TV obviously is entertainment, right? Obviously, when we're in court, we're either arguing against our counterparts, the prosecutors, or presenting something either to the judge or to the jury. There are moments where we try to make our point in a dramatic fashion, right? Try to make sure that the jury or the judge understands our point. But it is substantially different than actually being in court, being in front of a real judge, being in front of a real jury, and having real conversations and many times disputes with our counterparts, the prosecutors. But I too enjoy a good legal show. But it's not really the same.
I mean, did you ever have that dramatic moment yourself? Obviously not as dramatic as like in Suits or Judge Judy, but did you ever have that kind of dramatic moment that you'll never forget?
I mean, anytime you're standing in front of a judge or jury making either openings or summations, you're giving a story, right? You're giving your account of your case to your audience, the judge or the jury. And standing there, you are the center of attention. So every word that comes out of your mouth has to be for a reason, for a purpose. And you also have to remember that when you're doing this, that it's more than just the moment. It is their life. Any and everything that happens will affect whether they walk out with me or whether they don't. So we take it very seriously when we walk in that courtroom and having these conversations with the judge and the jury. Is it dramatic? Obviously it's dramatic because you're standing there, they're looking at you, they wanting to know, what's your point, Mr. Bell? What is it that you are trying to convey to us? What is it that you think the prosecution got wrong? But you have to be very precise about what you're saying to them. I am a competitive person by nature, so I don't like to lose. So we put a lot of time and effort in making sure that our arguments are not only sound, but they just make sense. I have conversations with my children, my wife. Does this make sense? Do you like how this sounds? Does it sound a little bit outlandish? And they give me real feedback.
I feel like it's not only just about presenting facts. Well, most of it is, but like it's also how you present them, like the confidence you present them with.
I think you're very right. There's an organization about it. There's always a beginning, middle, and ending. But sometimes you're telling the judge or the jury in the beginning what I want you to know about what I'm going to say, and then tell them the story, right? And then in the middle, you tell them again why it is that I believe that the thing that I chose in the beginning is true, and then support it with facts. And then by the time you get to the end, you're doing it all over again. It's one of those things that if you do it enough times and you're confident in what you're saying because you prepared, then it comes across as you're prepared.
Yes, I mean, not putting you in a tough spot, but we kind of are.
Mhm.
Without any names or violating anything, has a name
Right.
walked through your door that made even you take a double take?
Oh, sure. I mean, remember, these are very serious allegations. Many of the things that you see in the news, if you follow the news, I know you guys heard of Puffy and heard of the trial that he went through.
Yeah.
But there's many, many other sort of allegations of violence and very difficult facts that you have to deal with. But ultimately, it's part of the job.
It's interesting.
Okay, so before we dig deeper into your career, let's go back all the way to high school. Who were you, and did people think that you would be a lawyer when you were older, or were you just trying to get through high school?
No one who knew me back then thought I would be an attorney. Even myself, to be honest. I ran track. I played a little football. I enjoyed high school a lot. But from a career standpoint, I had very close cousins who were engineers. And I really enjoyed taking things apart and putting them back together and understanding the circuitry, understanding how it worked. And I really thought I was going to be an engineer, not an attorney. I mean, I enjoyed the idea of taking things apart and putting them back together and making sure that they worked. um, I was either going to go that track.
Yeah, Sean likes engineering right now. He's actually doing some
Yeah.
classes with engineering in it. So maybe you could be an engineer, or you could be an
Or a defense attorney.
No, look, I think it's interesting understanding how things work, and I do make sort of a correlation with what I do as an attorney because it's understanding the cause and effect of things, right? When you're taking circuitry apart, or when you're looking at how a widget is connected to another widget and how those things impact one another, how the circuitry impacts one another is very similar to the human interaction in these cases. So I think the two paths sort of mirror because it's all about how these elements of these careers impact one another.
wow, that is crazy. But
Hmm.
your career is built on defending people who the world may have gave up on.
Mm.
What made you think that way, even if it's something small?
I guess I always come from the perspective that each of my clients are more than just what they're charged with. So when I see a client, I don't picture them as what they did in many respects. I picture them as what has affected them, what happened to them. And so you start trying to figure out interviewing their families, the people that are closest to them. I like to understand from the moment that they were conceived in many respects or born to the point that they are now. I need to understand that story. So my team, in many cases, there's another attorney that works with me. There's a mitigation specialist. She or he helps to cultivate that story. They're speaking to the family, getting pictures, getting educational records, anything that would help us put together an idea of who this person was through their life. Because no one ever sort of wakes up one day thinking, "I want to go and commit a crime, and I want to go to jail today." That never happens.
So, when you were in high school, were there any clubs, activities, or internships that pointed you to that direction of criminal justice?
In high school, I ran track. I played football. I love running. I love being on the track team. Um, but I was also in student government. You know, you have the yearbook clubs. When I was in high school, I was in Columbia, South Carolina. So my parents were very active in government and community. So I end up going and working as a page for the local state house, Capitol. And so that really sort of got my interest in government, how cases are built, how bills and legislation is sort of started. And so that's sort of how I got into the idea of the law. But it was more in the sense of I thought that I wanted to work in the legislature. I wanted to maybe be part of one of those sort of committees where you are helping individuals in different parts of the state. And that ultimately led to me working for my congressman. And then at one point, I actually was working in the Washington office while I was in school. So that experience probably was the biggest factor that I thought this is the direction of life that I was going to go. I was going to work in Capitol Hill. I thought that's where I was going to be because I really enjoyed that. It was a great experience working. I think I was based out of the Russell Senate building when I was in college, and being able to walk those halls with other congressmen, and that's what that was. I thought that was real cool for me.
Yeah, I mean, how did you even land that? Because that's a really big opportunity, and clearly it had a pretty big impact on your view of what you want to do in the future.
It was all about my parents, honestly. It was having conversations with them. My mother worked in the state house at the time, and she said that there's these opportunities to work as a page, which page is really just someone who moved papers from the dais where the committee is sitting to the other members of the committees to make sure that everybody's reading from the same bill. So I thought that was cool because it felt like you were in the middle of a storm of how legislation was actually being made. And so I went from that to working with another attorney who's doing some work. And I happened to know one of the staffers that was in support of the bill. So I I said, yes, I can just take them to the state house. She's like, well, how did you know that person? And so the story goes, I was a page and whatever. So I walked up, and so I ended up, it was just sort of a chance thing. And someone said, well, there's an opening at Senator Hollings' office. At the time, Senator Hollings was uh, our most senior state senator. And so one thing led to another, conversations and so forth. And my mom helped me with my resume, and I went for an interview. And I guess that was my freshman year in college
Oh,
because the University of South Carolina is basically right behind the State House.
yeah.
So it was like, oh, I can go to class. Once I'm done with class, I can go and work on the State House, and then the senator's office is maybe like 3 or 4 blocks away from the State House. So it was just like, oh, cool, and I got paid for it. So that's sort of the short story of how it happened.
Yeah, I also feel like it's that real life experience that's really key to trying to find out what you want to do because you can't judge something unless you actually try it, right?
Very true. Very true. I mean, it's something as simple as trying a new dish, right? You can look at it like, I don't like the look of it, and I don't like necessarily the smell of it. But until you actually use all of your senses and actually taste it, feel it, smell it, and touch it, you won't really know if you like it. And that's the same thing for a career. Same thing for any activity that you are looking to explore.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but I just pointed at sign because he's kind of that way with the food. He just judges it by its cover and he doesn't really try it. But I mean, that works for both food and for careers as well. So that's great
Yeah,
advice right there.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
So now you transfer all this wisdom to the University of South Carolina, where you study criminal justice for your undergraduate degree. Then
Mm,
you go to the University of District of Columbia for your law degree, right?
right.
That is two different cities and two different environments. So, what did moving from each college teach you?
It taught me that if I rely on my instincts, that no matter what the environment is, that we can thrive. I guess I always knew that if I had the opportunity to go somewhere else, I take that training with me. I take the willingness to try something new. But I'll tell you, the biggest transition for me was moving not from South Carolina to DC, but it was moving from DC to New York, where I had no support whatsoever. Right. It was just me. I knew 1 or 2 people who were in my class when I started the DA's office, but that was a huge transition. But again, you fall back on your training. You fall back on, you hear your parents' words about making wise choices and making sure that you understand the environment that you're in. My dad used to say if that there's so much that you don't know in the world, right? And understanding what you don't know helps you make decisions about how you're progressing in this new environment. So it's transitions for sure. But as you get older, you start having what I continue to call spidey senses about the things that you walk into an environment, you walk into a club, you walk into a new environment, and sort of you're sort of sussing out what the environment is telling you. And so that's what I did from when I moved from this very small town and went to University of South Carolina. And when I moved from University of South Carolina, went to DC, and from DC to New York, you sort of just take your time, understand your environment, and really suss out what it is that you're doing. Each step matters, right? Because as you get older, mistakes matter even more.
Yeah, and I mean law school is really famous for being so tough academically. What was your day-to-day like in college and how did you keep the motivation to keep going?
Well, in college, I went to college with some of my greatest friends. We always laughed that college really was an extension of high school for us because my high school was maybe like 25, 30 minutes away from the University of South Carolina. So college was obviously it was more difficult, it was more rigorous, but I had a great support group. When I went to law school, I may have known one or two other people. But at that point, I really made it up in my mind that once I got admitted into law school, that I was going to graduate. That it was never a thought in my mind that I was not going to graduate. I didn't think I was going to go and do criminal defense, but when I met my criminal law professor, criminal law just was a like a mind blowing. Just so wow, this is interesting because each case was very interesting. It was obviously the facts are crazy and the like, but the human element of these cases of destruction of lives and how these attorneys were working diligently to try to help these individuals go from where they are in these very difficult situations to help them craft a way out. That resonated with me almost immediately in my criminal law class.
I
Yeah.
love that motivation of like, there's no chance I'm not graduating because I mean, if you put that thought into your mind that like there is a chance, I feel like that's when you start to kind of lose hope if something does go wrong. So, I mean, I
Mm,
really do admire that mentality of like, nothing's going to stop me from accomplishing my end goal. And I would assume that's a mindset that you kind of carried on into your work life too. Like, I'm going to accomplish what I'm meant to accomplish.
oh, for sure. When I opened my office, on my first business card, on the back of the card that I was handing out, it said embrace the challenge and refuse to fail. That was on every card that I gave out.
Love that.
Um, because in my mind, I wanted the client to understand that the motto of my firm was to make sure that I understood the challenge that they were facing, but I would never give up on them. And so that carried me through to this day, and I give that to my kids. Because every day you go into school, every day you try something new, there is that challenge. But if you go into it understanding that you have the ability to actually succeed, right? Because you tell yourself you have the ability to succeed. And you don't listen to anyone else who tells you that you can't. I mean, then what are we talking about? It may take a little bit more. It may take a little bit more time studying, it may take a little bit more effort. But if you keep telling yourself, I can succeed. It is a challenge, but I know I can succeed. So just refuse to fail.
Yeah, and another quote that ties into that is hard work pays off, which a lot
Mm.
of teens are told. But what does it feel like in your career when you're in the middle of something hard?
Um, it's daunting. Obviously, it's everything that's hard is daunting. But I think that you break it down to elementary levels, right? To elements of what you're doing and try to not take the whole thing as a big problem. But if you look at the idea that, there's this big, massive problem, this big, massive case, instead of compartmentalizing and trying to understand this part of it. What's the phrase? How do you eat an elephant? It's, one bite at a time, right? It's the same sort of mentality. Take your time, figure out what the elements of the problem is. And then once you figure that out, you can start almost like a Rubik's Cube. You can start breaking down that aspect of the problem and not try to think about the others.
And I mean, look, you've covered a lot of ground in your time so far. You've gone from being an assistant district attorney in Brooklyn to being a defense attorney and having your own firm in 2004. So, I
Mm,
mean, it's been 20 plus years in, was it Southern and Eastern districts of New York?
hmm Yes.
So, I mean, you're also handling some pretty significant and serious existing federal charges out there in such a market in being in one of the biggest cities in the world. So, I mean, finding your own firm is also being more than just a lawyer. You're also kind of being an entrepreneur because, I mean, you literally made your own firm. So,
Right.
was there anything in the early stages of building your own firm that kinda came out of left field and that just hit you unexpectedly?
Of course. I mean, the idea of owning your own shop, you have to have your finger on the pulse of all of it, right? The cases themselves, the discovery, having conversations with the prosecutors, judges, having support staff, making sure that they are doing what they are supposed to be doing, that they're keeping me accountable for what I need to do, where I need to be. What came out of left field is, I guess, is the business side of it. I didn't necessarily consider myself a business person. I think I'm more of a people person and trying to understand people and trying to understand their issues and their problems and how to help solve. So the business side and making sure that you're making money, We have a family, right? Things that we have to pay for. We have bills and so forth. We have to take care of the office and make sure that the staff is being paid. All those things have to be taken care of. It comes back to the organization, but eventually you get an accountant. The accountant handles your books, right? Get a financial advisor. They're handling your money. So it's those things that there was a realization that I could not do everything well while also making sure that my clients got 100% of me when I was there, right? So you start, you know, delegating these sort of things to other professionals that help support you.
Yeah, and on top of managing a whole company, you also are in the courtroom still managing cases like racketeering, homicide, narcotics. So, I mean, those aren't small cases at all. They're pretty scary ones, in my opinion. I'd be frightened if I had to, defend one of those cases. But I mean, what does the preparation into these cases actually look like? I know you discussed that, you first start off by actually getting to know the person, but after that, where does the process kinda go from after you get to understand the person?
So there's these discovery rules. So all the parts of the investigation that now you have to go through. In many cases, it's many terabytes of material. I think I mentioned earlier I'm load these larger cases. I have other attorneys, I have other paralegals. If my client first language is not English, there's interpreters, there's mitigation specialists. So you have a full team going through the representation. But the primary thing is going through this discovery, reading it, making sure that it says what the government says it says, right? And sometimes it takes months to go through all of the material and truly have a master of it. Because it's one thing to actually just read it. In many cases, you have to read through it three, four, five times to really get a mastery of what it is that these documents are saying. But it takes a lot of time to read through the material, takes a lot of time to digest it, but it takes even more to actually master and be able to stand in front of a judge, in front of a jury, and be able to pull this all together to make uh, you know, a comprehensive or cohesion argument for a judge or for in front of a jury.
Yeah, and I know that you mentioned that doing it in front of the judge is actually the hardest part. And judges are honestly scary because our aunt is a judge and she is
Mm,
very, very intimidating in the courtroom. But then at home, she's like
right.
the nicest person ever. It's crazy.
Right. Look, I think judges are some of the most intelligent people in the world, and they have a lot of influence on what we're doing in these cases, right? But there is an acknowledgement that they are people. Once you get a rapport with a judge, once a judge is able to understand that you walk in, that you're prepared, in most cases the tension sort of wanes a little bit, right? And I think your aunt would say the same thing. If the litigants that come before her, she has a high expectation for their preparation for the arguments that they are making, and she holds them to that bar. So it may come across as intimidating, but it also may just be that she's holding them to a very high bar and making sure that the litigants understand that they need to meet this bar.
We always like to ask our guests one final question. What is
Sure.
your definition of success and how has it changed from your high school days to today?
I always like to think of success as achievement, and that achievement is only within you. Like, what is it that you think you can do, and then going beyond that. So, success in many cases is setting a goal and seeing if you can achieve it. Right. Whether it's academically, whether it's athletically, if your goal is to have straight A's, if your goal is to make sure that you're beating your time in an athletic sport, setting a goal and then setting it just a little bit higher to make you challenge yourself, I think is the biggest thing in forming what success looks like. Because every level of success is going to look a little bit different for you as you get a little bit older, right? And it's going to look different between the three of you and for even your colleagues and your classmates, right? But I think it's within you to determine what that success and not don't let the outside world determine what your success is. Keep challenging yourself, keep setting the bar high for yourself, and success comes naturally from that.
Wow. This job is so time consuming and it takes so much hard work to get through. And so one of my takeaways that I've learned today is that, and also I feel like before you actually start the case, which I didn't know, you have to actually dig deeper into the client because you have to
Mm,
know what they've been through and how they're doing. I just feel like I didn't know that. I just thought that you get the client and then you just go into the courtroom and then talk to the judge and try to defend them. But there's so many deeper levels to that. So now we give a chance for our guests to turn the tables and ask us a few questions. Do you have any for us?
So one of the things that I was very impressed with this podcast is, first of all, you guys putting it together and the lineup of people that you've spoken to. What is it that you think you've learned from, or the thing that's most impressed you about what you've learned from your experience so far?
So I feel like the most important thing that I've learned is trying to find out what you don't like before you find out what you like because
Mm,
it helps you narrow down what your choices are for what you want to do in your career.
Yeah,
mm,
for sure.
yeah,
And I mean, so far we've talked to some pretty high ranking people, and I
sure.
don't think many people, like, for example, you too, like, I don't think many people understand the amount of work it actually takes to get from the bottom all the way to the top to where, like, you guys
Mm,
are. So, I mean, it's pretty awesome to learn about your journeys because, I mean, you guys have been through a lot of different things. Like, I mean, you literally moved into a city like New York that you had no, like, support system that you really knew about, so you kinda started from scratch in that kinda sense. But, I mean, there's so many different things that lead up to the point where you're at that I'm really impressed on how you guys were able to battle through adversity to get to the top.
Yeah, and I
right.
think it's like the stories we hear about everybody's journey. Every single journey is different and it's so interesting. So I think like that's what's the best part about this podcast because it really just helps us learn new things every day.
Yeah, no, I think that's very impressive, guys. It really is. I've watched a few of the segments, and what stands out to me is your curiosity, right? And asking the questions. I think you guys ask really great questions, and I think if you continue to ask great questions, you get great answers, right? And those answers help you develop how you're thinking, how you want to proceed through your whatever next career in the life. So just remain curious, and remain asking questions, and I think you guys will find success without question.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I mean, it was a great time talking to you.
It
We
was a
learned a
pleasure.
You
lot
as
of
well.
great lessons, had a lot of fun. I mean, law is definitely something that's really cool. I mean, the
Mm.
impact that you have on people's lives and the thrill of actually being in the courtroom is pretty sick.
Well, look, it's an open invitation. If you guys would like to go to court with me one day, you are always welcome. One of your other colleagues, classmates, went to court with me once or twice. So you're always welcome to come with me. Give me a call, text me, and we'll make arrangements to make that happen.
Hey,
Uh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You guys can
Absolutely.
find us on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and yeah, that's about
Threads,
everything.
threads,
And
threads,
threads,
man.
and threads. Always forget one, always. We are the Future 3 Podcast, and we out. Peace.
Peace. Good
Peace,
job.
guys. Take care.